Welcome to The Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today because we're looking at one of the most monumental shifts in modern history. We're going to dive right in and explore how the arrival of the railroad fundamentally changed, well, pretty much everything about American life. We're talking a complete top-to-bottom transformation in how people traveled, how goods were traded, and how the country itself actually grew and connected. It's a massive story of incredible achievement, immense human effort, and really profound impact. So, to really wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of the shift, just think about what travel looked like before the railroads. Crossing the United States was agonizingly slow. It could take months of dangerous, grueling travel by wagon across the plains, or you'd literally have to take a ship sailing all the way around the continent. Imagine uprooting your entire life and spending a whole season just trying to get where you're going. But then, almost overnight, in the grand scheme of history, that journey was slashed to about a week by train. It's just a staggering shift in travel time that effectively shrank a vast, divided continent and completely reshaped the boundaries of what was even possible. Which brings us to Section 1, expanding the early rails, from the B&O to the Civil War. Let's step back for a second and look at our timeline, starting with the daunting reality of the 1830s. This is long before a transcontinental track was even on the radar. The very first common carrier railroad in the U.S. was the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, which fired up operations in 1830. And from there, railroad construction absolutely exploded over the next few decades. Track expanded at a blistering pace, especially across the Northeast and the Midwest. You can think of them like iron arteries, pumping life into rapidly growing cities and booming industrial centers. By the time the 1860s rolled around, you already had thousands of miles of track crisscrossing the eastern half of the country. And the crucial takeaway here is that this early infrastructure became a massive logistical asset. During the Civil War, the Union's significantly more extensive track network gave them a major strategic advantage. It allowed for much faster, way more reliable movement of troops and vital supplies. It really proved that railroads weren't just some cool novelty anymore. They were absolutely essential to national power and survival.
Moving on to Section 2, building the transcontinental, the great undertaking.
Now, with the Civil War over, the United States turned its sights toward a massive, incredibly ambitious project backed by the U.S. government, physically connecting the eastern and western halves of the nation. And to tackle this huge challenge, two separate companies took the reins, effectively creating this epic, high-stakes race to the middle of the country. On one side, you had the Union Pacific Railroad building westward, starting from Nebraska, and on the flip side, you had the Central Pacific Railroad building eastward from California. They were quite literally working from opposite ends of the continent, aiming to meet somewhere out there in the vast American interior.
Now, the environments and the people who actually powered this construction were remarkably different for both companies. The Union Pacific was pushing westward across the Great Plains, and that effort was largely powered by massive numbers of Irish immigrant laborers. Meanwhile, the Central Pacific, building eastward, faced the downright terrifying sheer rock faces of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Their workforce relied heavily on a majority of Chinese immigrant laborers.
I think it's important we pause here for a second and acknowledge the very real, often brutal reality for the people who actually built these iron pathways. This workforce, particularly those Chinese and Irish immigrant laborers, performed extremely difficult and highly dangerous work. We're talking about carving through solid granite mountains by hand and laying track across some of the most harsh, unforgiving environments on Earth. And, historically speaking, they often did this for lower pay than other workers. Their immense sacrifices were, without a doubt, the true foundation of this entire transcontinental achievement. All right, let's jump to Section 3, the Golden Spike, meeting at Promontory Summit. So after years of grueling labor, unimaginable engineering feats, and this fierce race across the continent, those two incredibly long tracks finally approached one another. And then, on May 10, 1869, the two lines met at Promontory Summit, Utah. This marked the official completion of the first transcontinental railroad. To celebrate what was honestly an unbelievable milestone in human engineering, a ceremonial golden spike was driven right into the final rail tie. The East and the West were finally permanently linked by a continuous band of iron. Which brings us right back to this incredible number, 1 week. Because of that golden spike, crossing the entire country went from months of perilous, exhausting travel by wagon or ship to just about 7 days by train, permanently. It fundamentally changed how Americans and all the goods they relied on moved across the continent.
Section 4, an altered nation, the dual legacy of the rails.
On the opportunity side of things, the rails obviously sparked a massive economic boom.
Expanding these railroads over the next few decades absolutely hyper-accelerated the rapid settlement of the American West. It supported the growth of entirely new industries that simply couldn't exist without reliable transport. Plus, it enabled a much faster nationwide distribution of agricultural products and manufactured goods. For the very first time, the country was operating on a unified, high-speed economic grid. However, we have to look at the full picture here. This rapid expansion had significant and often very difficult consequences. The railroads severely disrupted and displaced Native American nations. The rail lines frequently cut directly through traditional lands, which only worsened the immense pressures on indigenous communities already dealing with westward expansion. On top of that, this era gave rise to incredibly powerful railroad companies that basically operated as monopolies. They held tremendous economic and political influence over the entire country. In fact, that unchecked corporate power became a really pivotal issue. Because these early railroad companies had massive economic and political influence, they could basically dictate prices and control entire regional economies. Naturally, this eventually led to loud, widespread calls for greater government regulation of large industries. It was a massive political shift, one that would go on to shape government policy and corporate America for decades to come.
And finally, Section 5, the next chapter, looking ahead.
So it's pretty clear that the railroad wasn't just a new way to travel, right? It was a catalyst. It reshaped the entire American economy, it intimately connected distant regions, and it hyper-accelerated westward expansion. Its impacts, both the incredible opportunities it created and the severe disruptions it caused, permanently forged a new nation. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question. With the vast American West now seamlessly connected by rail, who would arrive next from across the oceans to fill these new lands? How exactly would the country handle a massive influx of people seeking to ride those very rails? Well, we are going to answer exactly that in our next explainer, where we turn our eyes to Newark Harbor, the shining torch of the Statue of Liberty, and the millions of immigrants arriving through Ellis Island. You definitely won't want to miss it.